All right. We're going to learn passé composé. Passé composé is pretty much the past tense. In French, they call it passé composé, which is composed past. But basically, it's the past. We learned the present, we reviewed the present, and now we are going to learn how to do the past. Now, the past tense has two parts, and it also has two verbs, different than what we've done before. So, just to show you some examples, here is I eat, and here is I ate. Here is I vomit, and here is I vomited. So the past tense is something that has already happened, and as you noticed in French, we only have one verb in the present tense, but we have two verbs in the past tense. So I'm going to show you that process. And what I want you to do is write down the notes as we are going along. So first off, I want to show you this fancy dancy picture right here. I guess you can't do that. Never mind. Here is a... I'll just keep going. Never mind. All right. So to conjugate the past tense, you first need to figure out what house the verb is in. What house is the verb in? And what that means is it going to use an avoir helping verb, which is what our first verb is always, or an être helping verb? And we can do that simply by looking at the pink sheet. And on the back of the pink sheet, you see an acrostic that says Mrs. Dr. Vandertramp, which is just an acronym for all 16 verbs plus one special one that uses être. So if it is in this house, I call it the Tramp house, which is horrible, but at the same time it is Mrs. Dr. Vandertramp. Ha ha ha. If it is in the Tramp house, you're going to use the être verb as your helping verb. But if it is not, then you're going to use the avoir. So your first thing you have to figure out is if it's être or avoir. And you just simply look on the back right here where you see this fancy little sheet, which you have also. You have on the back, you have all the verbs that use être. If they're not on the back of that paper, you're going to use avoir. So let's try first off how you change the verb. So the first step is you find which house. The second step is you need to decide whether the verb is regular or irregular. It's always the question of the French. How do you do that? Well, first of all, most of the verbs are going to be regular, but there are a huge amount of verbs that are irregular. And so what I did on that house, I put them in the door. You'll look in the door of the être house, and you'll look in the door of the avoir house. And I wrote all the irregular verbs. If they're not in the door, then you're going to use the sunshine rays of Madame to change the verb using the, that's my rays. That's the rays of Madame. If you do not, if you figured out that it's regular, you're simply going to take off the ER of the verb and add an E with an accent. Take off the IR, add an I. Take off the RE and add a U. That is simply how you change regular verbs. If it is an irregular verb, you're simply going to either look on Google or you're going to look in your door, which will indicate irregular verbs, and you'll just write it as is. So that's step 1 and 2. Let's try a couple of them. Let's say we wanted to say, I vomited. So my verb is vomir. So the first step was what? Is it an avoir verb or is it an être verb? Step 1 we have to look and see if it's an être verb or an avoir verb. So we're going to look on the back of the pink paper, and you're going to find, do you see vomir? If there is no vomir, then we know that we're going to conjugate it with avoir. So right away, you know you're going to use avoir. What is my pronoun? It is je. What is my conjugation for avoir? It is ai, using your notes there. And you'll notice I put the conjugations of the two verbs in the roof. If you look in the roof, there is the conjugation of avoir and être. So because it is avoir, we're going to have to drop that, put a little apostrophe, add my helping verb, and now I have to change my verb. Is vomir, question number 2, is it in the être house? Or I'm sorry, is it an irregular verb or is it a regular verb? First of all, look in your door, look in your door, look in your door. If you don't see it in your door, then you're going to use the sunshine rays of madame to change the verb. And I drop my IR and I add an I. And I have conjugated the sentence, I vomited. Good job. Okay? So I'm going to just add one more slide there to those steps, and that would be you do the negative. And let's look at another verb. So let's look at the verb to be born. So if I wanted to say I was born, the first thing I have to do is figure out what's that verb in French before I start step 1. And naître is the verb to be born. It is in your door, if you look in your door. So it is an irregular verb. So I need to say I was born. First step, is it avoir or is it être? Look on the back of your pink. Do you see if it's a tramp verb? Do you see born on the back of there? We do. We see it back there, so we get to use être. What is the être verb in the roof? It is je suis. And then now the second question is it irregular or regular? Where do we look? We got to look in the door. Do we see it in the door? We do. And how is it changed? It's changed to this. So N-E with an accent. Je suis né. I was born. And you just conjugated 2 verbs in the passé composé. Let's see where we put the negative. If you look at the roof, that is where your helping verb is, être and avoir. Then you have your door, which is your irregulars. Irregulars. Then you have your sun, which goes in between each of the houses for regular verbs. Right here on top of the roof, you'll see a ne and a pas, because it's reminding you to put the ne pas around the helping verb, because we have 2 verbs now. Let's take a look at these 2 verbs. If I wanted to repeat I vomited, let's look at our pronoun. There's our pronoun. What's our helping verb? Our helping verb was ai. And what is our actual verb that's being put in the past? Vomi. So notice the 2 parts here. We've got our helping verb, that's always in the roof. And we have our actual verb, which is either going to be changed in the door or in the sunshine rays. So 2 parts. So where would we put the negative if we were having to make this sentence negative? Well, we're going to put it around our roof, and that is going to be around the avoir. So it would look like this. Je, I have to go back to je, n'ai pas, and then vomi. So notice where my 2 ne pas are. They're around my helping verb right here, my roof, my helping verb. First the ne pas, I have to do an apostrophe, and then the second verb. And that's it for today. We'll keep working on this another day.
And there's that bell.